Amazing. It's like, yeah, like a alcoholic tea. The best kind of tea. We're off to Islay. So we've come to Islay. It's a little island off the west coast of Scotland, and it's rich with produce. We're here for good food, we're here for a good time, and we're here to fuck shit up. All about that terroir, and we're going to be cooking in the wild, cooking outside, cooking over fire. Beautiful recipes. I'm so excited to be here.
Hey Tom, it's James here from the Botanist Gin. Welcome to Islay. Do you want to come out foraging and we'll see what wild flavours the island has to offer? You could meet me at the distillery, get a wee sample before we head out. See you there.
Obviously we're on Islay, famous for its whiskey, so it had to be a distillery. Pumped to get out in the wild. What's more Scottish than a Scotch whiskey? Morning, James.
Hello, Thomas. Hey Tom, welcome to
How you
Islay.
doing? Lovely to meet you.
Indeed, and welcome to the Berghaus distillery.
Thank you very much.
And a reasonable day for it. Aye, well we're here. Islay obviously famous for its whisky and particularly famous for its heavily peated whiskies. But perhaps more unusually, really my little realm here is the Botanist Gin.
What goes in the Botanist Gin?
It's an expression of the wild flavours of Islay. What sets it apart, it's made with 22 wild botanicals, wild plants which are gathered one end of the island to the other.
How long have you actually been foraging for the Botanist or for yourself? Has it been a passion for a long time?
Very lucky to grow up rural Angus, surrounded by woodland, farmland, a couple of miles from the coast, and of a generation where you were just kicked out and allowed to get on with it. So
yeah, we need a bit of warming up. Can we try some?
Indeed, it's a sharp wind.
Oh,
We certainly can.
Going right down my neck.
We're probably as well to start with the classic laddie. As we're demonstrating with the gin here, there's a lot more going on in Islay just than the heavy peat. So this is made right here, and it's made with the same traditional Victorian equipment we've had on site since 1881.
1881?
So very little has changed here. Same as it always was. It's a lovely dram.
Yeah, it's delicious. A nice wee dram.
Take a little bit of the chill off.
Yeah, oh, God. Stand there for another few hours now.
What Islay's kind of known for, what we produce is a much sweeter, much more kind of barbecued feel to it.
It's definitely smoky. What is peat for ignorant people like me?
At its most basic, it's mud. It's
Okay.
mud that burns. So peat is the partially decomposed plant matter.
Okay, and why did they choose partially decomposed plant matter for smoking grains?
It's the fuel that was available.
Okay.
It's essentially the process of malting. So to stop the growing process, you will dry the grain. So it was never traditionally used to give that flavour. That was a byproduct of using the only fuel you had. We're just very lucky that it's delicious.
Yeah, it is.
We refer to it as an Islay dry gin. As a classification, it's a London dry gin. Beautifully clean on the nose.
Oh, it's full of flavour. Citrus notes in there. It's delicious.
But
Oh,
you'll get some of the minty notes coming
Yeah.
through there. 3 different local mints go in there. There's a resinous, almost camphor note there from the bog myrtle.
you can really taste the island. And, I suppose you just seem so passionate about what you do here at the Botanist and with Brooke Laddie. So should we get out and do some foraging?
Right,
I know it's early season.
but there's always something out there. So
Okay,
yeah, let's
perfect.
go. Have a
Let's
look.
give it.
Indeed.
We'll get rid of that. Three shots before 11, you see. What have we got here?
Common nettle. You couldn't ask for a better place to start. Everyone's familiar with stinging nettles. Covered in those tiny little hairs you can see on there. Each of those is basically a tiny little hypodermic syringe. So if you brush against them, that injects you with a combination of histamine and formic acid. But if you're quite harsh with them, they don't get into you. Are absolutely perfect. They are so nutritious. So there's an early spring catch as well. This glossy green, you feel it's quite fleshy. It has very few flowers once it's in flower, hence few flowered leek. But they will then settle into these lovely little bulbils like tiny little onions on the top, but it's got a very sweet, almost garlicky flavour to it.
Similar to wild garlic and similar to sort of like a three-cornered leaf or something like that?
Very oniony. But we're very lucky on Islay. I mean, we're here by the banks of the River Sorn. We've got a lovely bit of woodland here. The island's got an incredibly diverse geology, so we sit at the junction of 2 or 3 great fault lines, and that's going to give you a lot of different underlying structure. That influences the soil above. I mean, we're here in the middle of a hefty chunk of woodland. If you know most of the islands up the west of Scotland, they're fairly barren. You know, if they have a tree, they're lucky and often worship it as a god. But you'll not get it much fresher.
No. That seems to be a common theme on everything's fresh. It's free.
Free and abundant.
Yeah.
What more can you ask for? There's more than enough of it, but spread what we're taking a little bit.
Spread it out so you don't take from one patch, is it?
Indeed, indeed. So I always try and take a little from a lot of areas, and only ever anything that's as abundant as this is here, which goes a long way. But a little goes a long way. You know how pungent it is. So.
Yeah. So the gorse.
So yeah, good example, gorse or whin bushes as they're known. This is where our picking season starts, and you're just starting to get the aroma from that just now. So it's got a little bit warmer after a very, very cold snap, and you're starting to get that real kind of coconut aroma coming through in the wind. It's a bit like Ambre Solaire, kind of 70s sun cream, if you're old enough to remember that.
So it's sparse season right now for foraging, but we find stuff.
There's always something.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving us some of your knowledge. We're going to make a recipe for something, I think.
You're very welcome.
And we'll be out looking for stuff down south, I'm sure.
Indeed, aye. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay on Islay.
Oh, we will. We will. Spring forageable ingredients. This is called a few flowered leek. It's because there's few flowers when it's flowered. Great name. It's kind of like a wild garlic or like a spring onion, slightly less garlicky. And we also found some young nettles. My hands are still tingling from stinging. He said, just get on with it. Be a hardy Scotsman. So I got on with it. For this recipe, I'm going to make forage pesto. So I'm going to make a pesto out of these few flowered leeks, the nettles. With that, I'm going to make a fresh tagliatelle. But you know, we picked the ingredients outside this morning, and now we are about to make a really simple dish, free food basically, apart from everything else I bought. Okay, for the pasta, I've got 0-0 flour. Make it into a nice round, and then just use the base of the bowl to make it well in the middle. 1 whole egg, 10 egg yolks, 400 grams of flour, lots of egg yolks, and a touch of olive oil, and then just bring it together with a fork. I'll just chop it all in. Obviously a bench scraper is really useful for this. So it's quite a firm dough, so you just got to keep working at it. Looking to keep kneading it till it's super smooth. It does feel a bit dry at first, and then the flour gets hydrated. 5-10 minutes. Just want the dough to be super smooth. You want to shape it into a round. Just leave it outside, room temperature. Pesto. For the pesto, I'm going to make it in a Magi mix. You can use a pestle and mortar if you want. It's the traditional way. I find this is just easier. You know, we've got these lovely forage herbs which have been washed because obviously the dog might have peed on them. So we're just going to go in with the leeks, the nettles, a bit of salt because that's going to help. It's going to season it, it's going to grind it down. A little bit of black pepper. There goes some lemon zest. Also locally foraged. Olive oil. You can always add more olive oil. So because I hadn't used the few flowered leek before and it's the garlicky flavour, I just wanted to taste it before I add more garlic. It's got a nice oniony flavour. I think it could probably have a 1 clove of garlic in there. Just going to grate that in. So I got that basically to where I want it. Flavour's good. The reason I'm adding the pine nuts now is that I still want there to be a bit of texture in the nuts. I didn't want to blend them all in straight away, so. Parmesan first. It's good to have a lot of cheese. That's why you've got to be careful on the salt at the beginning. Pulse that through and you'll see it thicken up almost immediately. You can see now we've got a lovely green pesto, full of flavour. Okay, so just add the pesto in here. If you're keeping it in the fridge, keep it in a jar. Some olive oil. Air sealed. And that will go in the fridge, last for a couple of weeks. Okay, so for the pasta dough, I've got this little pasta machine, which is a really good bit of kit. Just cut the portion that we need. You might not need flour depending on how dry or wet you've made the dough. Starting on the thickest setting, I'm going to run the pasta through. Couple of runs through on this setting, and then you can fold it over, laminate the dough. One. This is just to make it nice and neat and give it a little bit more strength. See, I've made it exactly the right size for this. And start bashing through the machine once more. And we're going to go to about the second thinnest setting. Works the gluten. So there we go, got a nice, you can kind of just see your fingers through it against the light. And there you go, that's lovely, tagliatelle. Just make sure, just season it. Like a tablespoon and a half of water in that. That's about 2 litres of water. 1.5 to 2 tablespoons. But always taste the water. It sounds weird, but it's. You want to taste the saltiness of the water. Wants to be just kind of tasting a bit like seawater, maybe a little bit less. Water's boiling. We go in with the tag. Just give it a quick shake it in there. Brush. Whilst the pasta's cooking, just a small knob of butter in this pan. So that pasta's going to take anything from like a minute to cook, really. So we're just going to get this moving here. A bit of butter, touch of oil, and then you've got the base ready for the pasta to shoot into. Okay. Pasta's cooked. We're getting there. Remember, we're going to finish it in the pan with the sauce. We don't want to cook the whole thing all the way through. Our lovely pesto. Good couple of tablespoons in there. Remember, we've got cheese in here, so we don't want to cook it too long. You just want to warm it through, basically. Pasta water is just loosening it up, because obviously we've got the cheese in there and the nuts, which make it thick, and then all the starch from the pasta. So there you go. You don't want a dry pasta, do you, Rollo? I like to add a little bit of touch of lemon just to lift it slightly. Tip it out on the plate like that. Oh, all nicely. There you have a foraged green pesto with nettles and few flowered leeks. Mmm. Oh, it's delicious. So simple, so good. Free food, forage. We got free greens anyway. Free goodness. And that's just the great thing. If you have the knowledge to go out, or the time or the interest to go out, there is food available for free in the countryside. It's how we used to eat. We obviously were a lot more knowledgeable back then, but it still doesn't mean we can't do it now. It's very rewarding, having picked this with our own hands. And now we've got a delicious dish. Oh, it's really good. What can I say? Thank you so much to James for taking us out. I'd never tried a few flowered leek before, and it is delicious. I'll be keeping my eye out. Taste of Islay.